MCU reviews continue with another film from Phase 1. I've already covered Iron Man 1 and The Incredible Hulk, and now I'm covering one of the weaker films in the MCU, and that film is Iron Man 2, once again directed by Jon Faverou, and it is the third film in Phase 1 of the MCU leading up to the Avengers. It takes place 6 months after the first film, and now everyone on Earth knows that Tony Stark is Iron Man. He's opening up a new expo to celebrate his father, Howard Stark, while he's also dealing with issues from the government because they want his technology so that they can make their own Iron Man suits for the army. And while that's going on, he has a new enemy that wants to kill him named Ivan Vanko, aka Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke. While he's also dealing with other issues that do affect his life, like in regards to his arc reactor and seeing how that's slowly killing him. So just a little heads up, if you guys hear any background noise, it's really because we have fans going on outside my room because we are reaching the summer, unfortunately. And that's going to be happening throughout some of my other videos in the future, so if you do notice that, I just wanted to give you guys that heads up. But if you don't mind that kind of background noise and you understand because of how bad the weather can be, I hope you still enjoy this video regardless. So of course, Iron Man 2 was highly anticipated because a lot of people, myself included, love the first Iron Man film. And when this film first came out, and even though it still made a lot of money at the box office, a lot of people were still very mixed on it, mostly because it didn't have a stronger story than the first film did, because it focuses on other things that didn't relate to the main story, having things that are supposed to set up the Avengers, making this film feel rushed, which, by the way, this is one of the first films in the MCU to have that issue, just rushing a lot of stuff in the film just to set up another movie. And when I first watched the film myself, even though I still enjoyed it for what it was, there was still something in me that felt empty. And when I rewatched this movie for this review, I still feel that way, and unfortunately this is a mediocre film that's not as strong as the first Iron Man film. But that doesn't mean this movie's bad. It's not an awful movie. It's not like Batman and Robin or Madam Web or Fantastic or Morbius. This movie's not as bad as those films because it does have some redeeming qualities and some stuff that I still didn't like, and we are gonna mention that right now. Spoiler filled, of course. This movie does have some issues, like some of the dialogue and the humor. It really didn't work for me. Most of that felt like they were the weakest part of the film, because most of the humor is just characters making up some lines that are supposed to be funny or quippy, but they really just feel like they were just made up out of nowhere and are supposed to make them think that they were supposed to be funny. Like, this movie tries to come up with some jokes that are supposed to be funny, but they just feel like they were just trying too hard to think of a joke. Like, a character would say at one point, "You guys look like two seals fighting over a grape," which, what does that even mean? And most of the dialogue is just characters talking over each other, making it feel very distracting, and it's in almost every scene that happens. Give a character time to say what he or she is saying. Don't talk over that person for when he or she is talking. Making a lot of the dialogue and the humor just feel forced and awkward and don't really help elevate the story. And even the humor can ruin some emotional scenes, like when Tony and Rhodey are fighting in their Iron Man suits, they have some weird sound effects throughout and some random song choices in the background. Like, It Takes Two to Make a Thing Go Right. Like, why are we using that in this scene? This is supposed to be like a serious moment and you're kind of making it look like a joke. So now that I got the bad humor and dialogue out of the way, let's talk about the story itself. It's a mess. There's just too much going on in the story where you don't really have like a clear focus on what the main story is supposed to be. Because when you look at the first Iron Man, it felt like it had one story throughout, where some of the setup for the Avengers only happens in a couple of scenes. And with what they were trying to do with one story in that film, it felt cohesive. Here, it really doesn't. It feels like there's a lot of stuff happening all over the story. Like, you have Tony trying to do his new expo to honor his father, and you have him dealing with issues with the government that want his suit. He has a new rival named Justin Hammer, played by Sam Rockwell, that wants to copy his technology for the government. He makes Pepper his new CEO at Stark Industries. He's dealing with issues issues with his arc reactor slowly killing him and he has to come up with a new arc reactor. Rhodey steals one of Tony's suits and turns it into War Machine. Whiplash wants to kill Tony Stark because Tony's father had some issues with Whiplash's father and he believes that his father stole some technology from him. And instead of him being a darker version of Tony that wants to kill him, he spends most of the film locked up in Hammer's facility making his drones, which makes him a very less compelling villain. And you also have Natasha Romanoff, played by Scarlett Johansson, who starts out as a new secretary for Tony, but is also an undercover spy for S.H.I.E.L.D. And still, you have Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, enter in just to set up the Avengers and to tell Tony about Ivan Vanko's father and why he left Howard's side. This movie is a mess. It has way too much stuff going on. And of course, there's a lot of Easter eggs that are supposed to set up the Avengers. Like you see like an unfinished version of Captain America's shield at one point. You see a news report from the Incredible Hulk at one point as well. And even the after credits scene sets up the first Thor film, where this movie doesn't really feel like it's being its own film. It just feels more like a setup film that's supposed to set up the Avengers. And unfortunately, that's become a recurring issue for the other MCU films that would come out after this, where of course it did cause some issues for Jon Faverou, where he wanted to make his own film about Iron Man dealing with issues, but Marvel would just keep coming back to him and just say, hey, we need that for our Avengers film, we need that to be set up, which of course didn't feel like it needed to be in the film at all. And of course that's another reason why Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson, is in this film, who is an actress I do love. I love her in a lot of films, and I do love the character of Black Widow as well. And pretty much after this film, the other films have made her a more well-developed and fleshed out character. But here though, she doesn't really have any development at all. She's mostly just there to beat up a bunch of bad guys and be an undercover secretary and to just look hot. Which, yeah, Black Widow does look hot, but as a character, she's unfortunately boring in this film. And what really threw me off about this film are some of the sound effects. Where the first film had some realistic sound effects for some of the fight sequences, Iron Man 2, however, for some reason has some very cartoony sound effects. Like, there are a lot of, like, scenes where you just hear, like, clanging sounds that sound like they came out of a Saturday morning cartoon, taking away from some of the realistic and grounded feel to the fight sequences. Like, here's me punching some metal, or here's me fighting a bad guy. Like, they are that cartoony, and they really ruin the realism of those scenes. Now, in regards to some of the weaker MCU films, this movie isn't as bad as, like, Quantumania. It's not that bad. It's not Thor Love and Thunder, because it does have some things in it that I do like, which we are gonna talk about those right now. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is still awesome as Tony Stark. He's still likable, he gives the charm to the character, and he's one of the better parts of this film. Which, of course, if you're playing a character that redeems your career, of course you gotta give it your all as the character. I liked Don Cheadle as Rhodey. I like some of the CGI in the film, although there are times where you can tell that there is some green screen whenever a real person is standing around it. I like the one scene where Iron Man saved this kid in this Iron Man mask from this drone. By the way, that kid is supposed to be Tom Holland's Peter Parker before he becomes Spider-Man. That's a fun little Easter egg there. I like the montage scene of him trying to make a new arc reactor. And there are times where you can tell in the story that Jon Faverou was trying to make a more personal story for Tony Stark, where he's dealing with issues with his current arc reactor and he's drinking and he's dealing with issues and not talking to other people about it, which is a good concept. But unfortunately, with what they have in this film, just to sub the other Avengers and having other things involved in the story, it's unfortunately not well executed. And I do like the chase scene where both Tony, Jarvis, and Black Widow are trying to hack into Rhodey's suit after the suit takes over him and tries to kill Tony, when Rhodey doesn't have control of his suit, unfortunately, so both Tony, Jarvis, and Black Widow have to figure out to get him to control his suit again. So at the end of the day, I don't hate Iron Man 2. It's got some things in in it that I liked, and it's kind of a masterpiece when you compare it to some of the other MCU films like Love and Thunder or Quantumania or The Eternals. And I own the Blu-ray, so I do feel like watching it sometimes. But at the end of the day, this movie still felt like a very disappointing movie when you compare it to the first Iron Man film, and that is still hard to top nowadays. I'm gonna give Iron Man 2 a C. Guys, those are my thoughts on Iron Man 2. What do you think about it? Do you think it's as good as the first Iron Man, or do you think that this is the worst MCU film? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing, because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm posting. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.